Hi everyone, what a week it has been. I thought in light of the events happening yesterday, I would make a little bit of a reaction video to it. So basically, yesterday, this happened.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Spot and Dog.
Now, I have to admit, I had it all live streamed from about 3 o'clock GMT time until about, I think, 8, 9 o'clock in the evening yesterday. And my God, that was enthralling. Just the inner engineering nerd in me just going mental all day with it. Looking back on it today, I'm still just kind of blown away with it. It is something that, you can see why when people first landed on the moon back in the 60s, how it became like a global phenomenon, that moment, because there's just something about it, the hype behind it, and just watch it take off, something that theoretically or realistically should never have existed, like naturally would never exist, just occurred, and sending people into space, something we can't naturally do. Just everything about where mankind has come from and where we've gotten to, just summarized in one moment, which was that rocket sending off, blasting off into space. And it was just great. It was just something I loved watching and really just loved being a part of. I think in this video, I'm just going to go over all the important aspects of what occurred yesterday, what it denotes the start of, and basically the importance of seeing a brand new way of looking at things moving forward. So the first one, I'm not particularly too bothered about, primarily because I'm not American. It's probably only really important if you are American, is one, that it occurred on American soil. That the rocket, the capsule, the launch site, everything, even the people, even the astronauts physically on the rocket, they were all American. Now, I'm not American, so I'm not really that bothered, but I know if it occurred in Britain and the whole thing was British done, I'd probably have had the same hype that the Americans have at the moment. But it's the fact that everything was done in country, just showing or demonstrating really the capabilities of your country. Not showing off, not trying to glamorize that you're better than any country, but just showing how your local people in your local community have come together to create something just phenomenal. So for me, it's not a very important point, but I can appreciate that out there are people absolutely proud as hell of their country right now. So importance number 2 is this marks the start of a combination between a public entity and a private entity, and basically causing it as a business. And it's very easy to see from the offset. First of all the astronauts arrived in Teslas, which was pretty cool. It was pretty nice to see. All the Teslas are nice and bright white, they're all nice and sleek, and I think especially for something as important as an astronaut, it really gives you that celebrity feeling to them, something that you only really at the moment see with sports personalities or actors, is these really important people that have dedicated their life to something. It creates almost like a momentous occasion that they're being driven in something that's really highly sought after, and just this parade, I just felt, just made it so much more important and made you actually want to learn more about the astronauts, because these people dedicate their life to this, and yet very few people know much about them other than, oh, they're astronauts. The second thing is, because of the crossover between the two entities, it means that everything looks much sleeker. Even the inside of the capsule where the astronauts are sitting, even the suits that astronauts are in, they just have been brought up to date so quickly up to the 21st century. You know, it's 2020. We can fabricate anything at this point with 3D printers. Why can't we make them look like actual spacemen we imagine they would look like in the future, rather than these massive, uncomfortable, clunky looking suits. Make it sleek and cool and awesome looking, almost like a superhero suit, you know, something that's really fitting, really kind of just embraces what's going on, and also makes it so much more pleasurable to watch, because you feel like you're not watching something that's outdated. You're not feeling, if this was actually a movie, before it might just feel like a repeat of a past thing you've watched, but this felt new, it felt fresh, it felt like an absolutely brand new take on an old recipe, really. And the third thing is, this marks a totally different avenue to going into space. It was brought up quite a lot during it, but it's all about the reusableness of this process. So the idea is, at the moment, these sort of rockets and stuff, it's very elite because of the amount of money that's required. So you can only send people up every so often, and these are few and far between. And when they get up there, there's so much pressure on trying to get up there, trying to get everything that needs to be done so everything can last as long as possible until the next rocket goes up. Now, with the Falcon 9 successfully, so this has been the first launch from SpaceX where they have successfully, I think, managed to put people into Earth orbit, or low Earth or high Earth orbit, I can't remember which one, but it's the first time they've managed to do that. And the importance of that is, it shows, one, that a private company can do that, and it shows just actually how the Dragon capsule is able to do that now. So they've got the formula down for keeping people alive in orbit. And two is because the Falcon 9 rocket successfully landed back on the aircraft, I think it was an aircraft carrier it was on, it successfully landed, means that it can be reused now. It can be used on another the next project going forward. So what's the importance of it re-landing? Well, if it re-lands with obviously, because of the amount of force it's been through and all the strain, it will need a little bit of repair work, but it means with that bit of repair work, it can be used again, which accelerates the process of trying to get another launch started. Because if you take a brand new rocket from its nuts and bolts right from the start, it costs millions, if not billions, to build and fabricate. Whereas if you take a rocket that's already there and you just change out the parts that are now, you know, like a car or any other asset, is you just take out the parts that are no longer working, you do a bit of a sense check and quality check to make sure all the parts are working, repair it so it's almost as good as new, or to recommission it, then you've set off. So one, that's a lot quicker, which means you now have a nice new rocket to use again within months rather than years. And two, it's a lot cheaper. So depending on the damage, we don't actually know yet. I don't know if SpaceX will ever actually tell us, but it does have the potential for the next rocket, so you're reusing that rocket for the next project, that will only cost, let's say, hundreds of thousands to get back up to scratch rather than millions, which brings the cost down by so much. Which means if the cost is lower, you've then got more money to spend on more investment in other areas, which basically just accelerates the process of us getting better doing this, doing it quicker, doing it more frequently, getting more people into space, which means we can accelerate space travel and what we need to do out there exponentially. Like, we can just keep increasing. So the more money we have, the more time we have to invest in new technologies, new projects, new procedures. And if you take example here would be like the computer. To begin with, it was slow and clunky when it came out, because the only people would have it would be the elites in their offices. And then basically it got cheaper and cheaper, and then it got to a point where likes of Amstrad, although the quality wasn't the best, made them cheap enough for the common man to have in their house. And then between then and now, it's just exponentially increased what we can do. Like if you take the 60s when the moon landing happened and an iPhone now, there's not even a comparison between the two computers, because the iPhone has more power in it than that whole facility. And that's only in 50 years. So imagine what we can now do now that we have a process to save money, which will allow us to increase the amount of research and design, or R&D, to improve these rockets. The other thing is, obviously people still think of it as a bit of a billionaires boys club to go into space and view it domestically. You know, you want to go up as a tourist, see it and come back down again without being an actual astronaut or up there to do some actual work on something. And yes, that is correct. To begin with, it will be a billionaires boys club, but the thing is, they will be bringing in the money and the investment to do that. And then what happens is, as the process gets quicker, and obviously we can now reuse rockets and we can do the turnover quicker and thus reduce the cost over time, it will eventually get to the point where it's cheap enough, potentially, where the common person like myself might be able to afford a ticket to go into orbit. It most likely won't happen in my lifetime, but what it does allow us to do now is, rather than one thing occurring per generation, we might have 2 or 3 things occur per generation. And then what happens is that keeps the interest in it, which, if there's interest, there's more funding, which allows us to just accelerate it, and it might not be it most likely won't be my generation, probably not even the next generation, but it might be like our grandkids' kids maybe. It will be at that point that we'll start to see, if all goes well and we're on that exponential curve for these improvements, to actually see commercial usage of sending people into space. And lastly, the one thing that was great about yesterday is that the times we live in now with social media, we can view and experience this from all over the world. And it's fantastic, because just watching it live and just experiencing it and going via, I don't know, I was watching it a bit on my phone, I was watching it a bit on my laptop, watching it a bit on the TV. So it doesn't matter where you were yesterday, there wasn't really much of an excuse not to watch it. Or if you didn't see it, you can easily watch a repeat of it now, because it was all live streamed on YouTube. It just allows everyone to be part of it globally, live. And it's a bit like, you know, if you're in America and you're watching American football, if you're watching the Olympics, it's just such a moment, and it just makes you feel like you are part of what's going on, some momentous occasion. But what's great about it is you can get everyone's feedback on what's going on live, so everyone can enjoy it. And especially, not so much my generation, but the younger generation, you know, like little kids and stuff, who never really experience that. Like, I loved it because it was the first time I experienced anything like that. Obviously, I'm not old enough to watch the moon landing or anything. But to the little kids in the next generation, that would just be awe-inspiring, and is something that would maybe convince them to go into the sciences or into engineering, where we're always needing people in those kind of practical areas. And if that can inspire them, that's fantastic. And then if we can do this with the reusable rockets, and we can get something like this going every couple of decades or every couple of years, it means that it isn't just that was once in a generation, that's it done, right? It's up for the next generation. We'll wait till the next generation before they can have their moment. It means we can have a handful of them going on, which creates continuity with exposure. Because if you think about the Olympics, it happens every 4 years, and people get excited for the Olympics and they always remember the Olympics. Whereas space travel, you can forget about for a while, because you only really see footage once every maybe 10, 20 years on something, and nobody's really that bothered. Whereas if you create this consistent hype and something that people can tune into, if they get to a point where they're launching every couple of months, people can keep coming back to it and keep a consistent interest in what's going on. And that would just accelerate, because it's all about that interest. If you can keep people hooked, it's like everything. It's like all good marketing. Like if you can keep people hooked consistently, they'll keep coming back. They'll keep coming back. And if people are coming back, there's money coming back with that. And it just rolls in cycles. And just the inspiration of it is just awe-inspiring. I just loved it. I might be rambling and speaking garbage at the moment, but I just thought it was fantastic. And especially because it was live streamed, all the kids were watching it. And because obviously a private firm with SpaceX just making everything look so sleek and 21st century, it was just so enjoyable to watch. It was literally like someone took an old movie and completely revamped it for the 21st century. And just the way everything looked, I just loved it. I thought it was great, and it really marks a new era for space travel where it can be can be assisted with privatization and accelerated commercially. Because at the end of the day, it's like with anything. Same with sport. It's the same with gaming. Same with any industry. If you can commercialize it, you can get the money in, and if you can get the money in, you can vastly increase the quality of the output, because you've got that money rolling in, and that will allow further and greater investments and allow you to improve exponentially. So I'm all for it being commercial. Obviously at the moment there's only really SpaceX who have done that, but I think this is a marker, like a milestone that's been dug in to show there is now a new era of how to handle space travel and how to look at it, reframe how to look and absorb that and be able to move it in a newer direction. Because it's all going well going up and just doing research or just doing like something that's very insular, but if you really want to capture the imagination of the people globally, you've got to include everyone. And the only way you can include the mass is by making it commercial. It's the same with anything. If you take a sport, only like the professionals will really care about certain degrees of it. But if you can allow people as an audience to come and experience that with you, well, it's just an absolute game changer. So that was my reaction. I thought it was great. If you haven't given that a watch, I'll put the link. Hopefully the live stream's saved on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the description. Give it a watch, even if it's just for that countdown at the end. And then what happened afterwards is, after the countdown was done, it showed you the milestone markers as it was traveling upwards and obviously traveling into orbit. And so it just allows you to experience it bit by bit and get a bit more of an understanding of how these rockets operate and what to look out for when a launch occurs. And I just thought it was fantastic. I'm going to stop it here because I'm going to keep rambling for ages. So give it a watch. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.